Hi, welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. On this segment, Maura and I are going to be talking about one of the interesting new ideas in higher education that's being circulated on Capitol Hill. And for this idea and to talk about it, we have two of the best people in the Commonwealth. One, of course, we have Steve Hicks, who's the president of APSCUF. Steve has been here many times. Welcome back. Of course, APSCUF being the union of our faculty members at our 14 state-owned universities. And we're being joined as well by Lisa Milhouse, who's the APSCUF president at the local chapter at Westchester University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great opportunity.
Why, this idea that has, Lisa, why don't you tell us about this idea of possible secession, that some of the state universities might be able to go private and leave the 14-state system university, and your university is being mentioned. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the background behind this idea?
There's a bill that's been proposed in the Senate that would allow what is currently a state-owned institution to purchase back the land and the buildings from the state and become state-related rather than being a state-owned institution. And
state-related like Pitt and Temple and Lincoln.
Lincoln, yes.
Penn State.
Penn State. And so this comes out of Westchester. It's clearly driven by some of the issues that Westchester feels, that there's a little bit too much control from Poshy in Harrisburg, and that we're struggling to try and make ends meet with a lot of the bureaucracy that's happening. So I think it's coming out of some of the feelings that are happening in Westchester. Westchester's not the only school that is looking at it as a possibility.
How does this help? How does this help Westchester if they do secede?
Well, yeah. What the proponents, I don't know for sure that it will help Westchester, because it does take us out of a larger system. The proponents of the bill are saying that it will reduce the red tape that we have to build buildings or to get curricular decisions made from the state level. They're saying that it will allow us to increase tuition, which they seem to feel is necessary at this time, and it removes some of the oversight that the state has and some of the transparency. So you can see why that might be appealing, but I'm not sure necessarily that that's a good thing for the institution.
I think if I could interject here, that Westchester, there's a side that says these are helpful things, but there are also the downside. For one thing, you're probably going to change the tuition model from being the most affordable four-year education in the Commonwealth to something that's at least slightly more, but it definitely more to fill in expenses. And the next thing is you're going to take about 16,000 seats out of the state system from those in Chester and Delaware counties and Montgomery counties who go there are going to start looking for another low-cost option. So the whole dynamic of what Westchester University does in recruiting is probably going to change. So I think that's, you know, Westchester University, which is now part of the low-cost option, is going to move up a tier, and so that's going to change the whole dynamic, I think. And I think that's part of the hope of the people proposing it, but it's also our fear that that change of dynamics going to mean there's less opportunity for a low-cost, high-quality education for students in that area particularly.
Stephen, I can't imagine that in the long run that this is going to be a better situation for individual educators, for your members, being out of a larger group of people that provides assistance and help to one another. What are the ramifications for APSCUF?
Well, I think as a union, I don't know that we really are too concerned with those issues right up front. I think we're more worried about education and students and how that works. The system shares a whole lot of things at this point. They share a payroll, they share administrative software, they share a library network, They share an athletic conference. I could go on. Well, we share health care. Everybody is in the same health care. All those things are by the wayside with this legislation with a state-related Westchester or who else goes along with them. The legislation makes 9 of our institutions eligible to leave the system. So
Why just 9? Why
why
not all
just
14?
9? It seems from the legislation that they were shooting for a size factor. They thought the legislation talks about having more than 7,000 students. So they clearly thought that you needed to be 7,000 students to be large enough to be an individual unit. And there is no magic in the number 7,000. It's artificial and arbitrary. It would clearly give a lot of our schools that opportunity, but there are very successful 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 person universities, and there are very successful ones less than 7,000. So there's not like there's a magic in that number. So.
Well, the whole idea behind the state system is to grant access
Right.
on a statewide basis to,
Right.
to students. In
112,000 this
right,
year. Right.
in an affordable manner. And if you give 9 of them the ability to go off and do their own thing and become their own entity, the entire concept is out the window, that we have a state system that's affordable and accessible for all the students.
That's right. Act 188 that created this system says we're supposed to provide a quality, affordable education. Right. And if you let the 9 have some independence on their tuition, you have to be concerned that there won't be as many affordable seats as there used to be. In a time when we all talk about we need more education and more people getting degrees instead of fewer.
Well, Lisa and Steve, affordability comes into view here too, because Senator Dinniman said that the tuition would not increase if Westchester were state-related any more than it would at any of the other state system schools. Is that in the legislation? Is there a way to assure that that would happen, Lisa?
I think the legislation suggests that when we get an appropriation as a state-related, if we were to go that route, that we would have a suggested tuition rate. But the reality is there's a big loophole that says that if the appropriation isn't enough to cover it, then we can charge more. And the indication, Senator Dinniman suggested that $550 increase for the first year, which is a 9% increase, would be likely. And there's no reason to expect that it wouldn't be higher than the cost of inflation going into the future. Everything points to higher tuition. We have to buy back the buildings and the land. We don't have the benefit of the economies of size. Students would be likely to not be able to transfer in as many classes because articulation agreements wouldn't work. And then would we follow our state-related peers then and charge more for certain programs or for juniors and seniors? I mean, everything is pointing to increased tuition for students.
Well, the supporters of the bill and the prime sponsor have said that this is a means to open the discussion on the state system. It seems like a pretty extreme way to go about beginning this discussion, but clearly if there are some issues with some of the universities that are struggling, then you do need to address a few issues. Do you want to talk about some of the ideas or what might be going on?
Well, can I start with your point about it seems an extreme way to go?
It does.
I have to say that in my office it's known as the bazooka that's been taken to the water gun fight. So it does seem like an extreme way to go. So you want to talk about the...
But it's definitely gotten the discussion going. I mean,
it definitely has.
They can say that.
I mean, I think we do need reforms. There is a lot of red tape. We've got a building that's 2 years behind. We raised the money to build the building. Now it costs more to build the building because we couldn't start building it 2 years ago when we had the money. So we've set up a lot of red tape. We do need to do something. But I don't see that raising the tuition and taking us out of the larger group is going to actually solve the problems that we really do need to look at.
I think the legislation does start a discussion, and clearly we have been on the side that says we do need the Dixon Center to be more transparent and to be more responsive. I think the new Chancellor, Chancellor Brogan, has started some programs, some pilot programs on tuition that may give some flexibility on tuition to the institutions, and that looks like a positive. And he's also changed the conversation on things like a weapons policy, that instead of imposing their will on 14, right now they're sitting, he came out in public about a week ago saying they may just let the 14 decide each individually what to do about such things. Those are good signs coming from the Dixon Center, and I think the senators who've proposed this, it would be good if they could sit down with the Chancellor and talk about some of the issues, and maybe he can find a way to make some of this work.
So Chancellor Brogan didn't really get much of a grace period when he signed up for Pennsylvania, did he?
Well, no, and I know how he feels having been there. And, the honeymoon was pretty short when I started, and when Dr. Kavanaugh started. Higher ed's a very fluid place to be these days. There's always some adjustment, whether it has to do with state appropriations and budget, or it's in people wanting to do with things with the curriculum. And the governor's commission isn't 2 years old yet, and they talk more about job orientation and fitting in with the community and performance funding. And none of those things have been brought up or talked about or enacted, but there are all those ideas out there pushing higher ed, and people talk about professors and universities not being malleable or changeable, and from where I sit, it seems to change constantly, and it's really a flowing river. So I think it's.
Let's end the show. We have just end this segment. We have just a few seconds left. But Lisa, if the faculty members at Westchester took a vote among themselves today, what would the vote be, to secede or to?
I think it would be difficult, but I do think that there are more that are opposed than are for. But there is debate and there is disagreement.
Mm-hmm. So, and is this debate also occurring at other state system schools, Steve?
Well, at the press conference last week, there were senators from Millersville and Shippensburg represented. So we understand that at least those two places are having some conversation. Doesn't seem to be as serious as what they're doing at Westchester, but at least we know at least the tease is out there. And obviously with legislation as it's drafted, there are going to be 9 places having that conversation to figure out what the pluses and minuses are, whether they could stand to leave the system or not.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being with Mara and me. We appreciate it, and we'll look to see you again next week right here on Behind the Headlines.